The most powerful man in Texas was choking to death at 37,000 feet, and the only person who could save him was a flight attendant who'd already decided she hated his guts. 3 minutes earlier, she'd watched him dismiss her colleague with a single, withering glance. 2 minutes earlier, she'd rolled her eyes so hard she nearly gave herself a headache. 1 minute earlier, she'd muttered under her breath that karma was real. And now? Now she was straddling a billionaire in first class, her fist pressed against his diaphragm, while 40 passengers watched in horrified fascination. When he finally gasped for air, his eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her blood run cold. She'd just saved his life. He'd just found his obsession. And nothing, not her resistance, not his enemies, not the ocean of secrets between them, would stop him from making her his wife. Welcome back to our channel. If you're already part of our family, welcome home. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell. Trust me, you're going to want to talk about this one. Now, let's get into it. The thing about working first class on international flights was that Samantha Williams had seen every type of rich person imaginable. There were the quiet, rich, old money types who wore cashmere that looked like regular sweaters and said, please and thank you, like their grandmothers were watching from heaven. There were the loud, rich, new money celebrities who wanted everyone to know they'd made it, tipping $100 bills like confetti at a parade. There were the nervous, rich, lottery winners and tech bros on their first private-ish experience, still impressed by warm nuts and actual silverware. And then there was him. Seat 2A. Christopher Kong. She'd known who he was before he'd even boarded. Everyone in the crew had. Kong Industries was one of the largest tech conglomerates in Texas, with fingers in everything from AI development to green energy. Their CEO was a fixture in business magazines, the kind of publications Samantha only read in doctors' waiting rooms when she was avoiding eye contact with sick strangers. What the magazines hadn't prepared her for was the reality of the man. He was tall, easily 6'2", with broad shoulders that his perfectly tailored charcoal suit did nothing to hide. His hair was black and swept back from a face that looked like it had been designed by committee specifically to make women do stupid things. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, eyes so dark they were almost black, framed by lashes that made Samantha irrationally angry because she had to use 3 coats of mascara to achieve that effect. He was, objectively, the most attractive man she'd ever seen in person. He was also, subjectively, the most insufferable. Water, he'd said when she'd approached for the pre-flight beverage service. Not, could I have water, please? Not, water would be lovely, thank you. Just, water. Like she was a vending machine with legs. Samantha had smiled her professional smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes, and delivered his water with the same energy she'd have used to serve a tax auditor. Your water, sir. He hadn't looked up. Hadn't acknowledged her. Just continued typing on his laptop like she was invisible. Fine, she'd thought. One of those. The flight from Seoul to Houston was 14 hours of her life, and she'd spent worse ones with worse passengers. At least this one was quiet. At least this one wasn't going to hit the call button every 7 minutes to ask if the Wi-Fi was working. That was what she'd thought, anyway. 3 hours into the flight, everything changed. It started with Destiny, her colleague, a sweet 23-year-old from Alabama who was still new enough to the job that she genuinely enjoyed it. Destiny had been doing the lunch service, wheeling the cart through first class with the kind of sunny disposition that Samantha had possessed approximately 8 years and 400 terrible passengers ago. Seat 2A had apparently decided he wanted the steak. The problem was, there was no steak left. I'm so sorry, sir, Destiny had said, her voice trembling slightly. We have the salmon or the vegetarian pasta. I didn't ask what you have. His voice was cold. Not loud, not aggressive, just cold. Like winter in Minnesota. I asked for the steak. I understand, sir, but the passenger in 1A requested. I don't care what the passenger in 1A requested. Samantha had been 3 rows back, restocking the beverage cart, when she'd heard the exchange. She'd watched Destiny's face crumple, watched the girl's hands shake as she gripped the cart handle, watched a single tear escape down her cheek. And something in Samantha had snapped. Not visibly. She was far too professional for that. But internally, she'd added Christopher Kong to her mental list of people who would not receive extra warm nuts. Destiny had apologized 17 more times before retreating to the galley in tears. Samantha had found her there 5 minutes later, hiding behind the curtain and stress-eating a mini bag of pretzels. He looked at me like I was nothing, Destiny had whispered. Like I was a bug on his shoe. Samantha had patted her shoulder. Honey, men like that look at everyone like bugs. It's not personal. It's pathological. How do you deal with it? You've been doing this for years. Samantha had considered the question. I remind myself that I'm going to outlive most of them purely out of spite. Also, I silently judge their hairlines. Speaking of which, did you notice 4C? Come over trying to stage a coup? It's a whole situation. Destiny had laughed wetly. You're terrible. I'm realistic. Now go splash some water on your face and let me handle the Prince of Darkness in 2A. That had been 30 minutes ago. Now, Samantha was doing the between-meal beverage check, making her way through first class with practiced ease. She paused at each seat, offering water, juice, coffee, the usual script. When she reached 2A, she braced herself. Can I get you anything, sir? Water, coffee, or perhaps some basic human courtesy. I heard it pairs well with the salmon. She'd said it quietly enough that only he could hear. It was petty. It was unprofessional. She absolutely did not care. For the first time since he'd boarded, Christopher Kang looked directly at her. His eyes met hers, and Samantha felt something electric shoot down her spine. Not attraction, at least, that's what she told herself. More like the feeling you get when you realize the animal at the zoo isn't actually behind glass. Excuse me. His voice was different now. Lower. Almost curious. Nothing, sir. She smiled brightly. Just asking if you need a refill. He studied her for a long moment. His gaze traced her face like he was memorizing it, her brown skin, her long dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, the tiny gold hoops in her ears that were technically against dress code, but that no one had ever called her on. You're not afraid of me, he said finally. It wasn't a question. Should I be? Most people are. Samantha tilted her head. Most people haven't worked customer service for 8 years, sir. After you've been screamed at by a woman in leopard print over a $3 bag fee, nothing scares you. Something flickered in his expression. It might have been amusement. It might have been gas. I'll have water, he said. Please, she added for him. What? Water, please. It's this thing people say when they'd like something. Studies show it doesn't actually cause physical pain. He stared at her. She stared back. The moment stretched like taffy at a state fair, too long, too sticky, too likely to end up on someone's shoes. Water, he repeated slowly, please. Was that so hard? Extremely. She poured his water with a flourish and handed it to him. Enjoy, sir. And might I suggest the salmon? I hear it's excellent for the soul. Also, it's literally your only option, so. She moved on before he could respond, but she could feel his eyes following her all the way down the aisle. Weirdo, she thought. Rich, handsome weirdo. She didn't think about him again for another 45 minutes. That was when she heard the coughing. The thing about choking is that it's not like the movies. In movies, people clutch their throats dramatically. They make strangled sounds. They knock over wine glasses and collapse onto tablecloths, while everyone gasps in perfectly choreographed horror. In real life, it's quieter. Scarier. A person goes red, then purple, then silent, because the thing about not being able to breathe is that you also can't make noise. Samantha had just finished dealing with a minor crisis in row 7. A toddler had somehow gotten hold of a Sharpie, and the results were abstract when she heard the strange, wet coughing from first class. She looked up. Seat 2A. Christopher Kang was hunched forward in his seat, one hand at his throat, his face a color that skin should never be. His other hand was gripping the armrest so hard his knuckles had gone white. For one eternal second, Samantha's brain did the thing it always did in emergencies. It went completely, absolutely blank. Then training kicked in. She was moving before she even realized she'd made the decision, pushing past the beverage cart with enough force to send a bottle of ginger ale rolling down the aisle. She registered, dimly, that other passengers were starting to notice. A woman in 3C was rising from her seat with wide eyes. Someone was saying, "Oh my God," and somewhere behind her, Destiny was asking what was happening. None of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the man in 2A who was approximately 30 seconds from losing consciousness. Samantha reached him in 4 strides. She didn't ask permission. She didn't wait for instructions. She grabbed the back of his seat, yanked it upright, and hauled him to his feet with a strength she didn't know she possessed. He was heavy, of course he was. He was 6'2" and built like someone who had a personal trainer and actually used them, but adrenaline was a hell of a drug. She maneuvered herself behind him, wrapped her arms around his midsection, and positioned her fist just above his navel. "Hold on," she muttered, though she wasn't sure he could hear her. "I've got you." First thrust, nothing. Second thrust, nothing. She could feel his body sagging against hers, could feel the desperate way his hands clawed at her arms, not fighting her, she realized, but holding on, like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. Third thrust, nothing. "Come on," she thought savagely. "Come on." Fourth thrust. Something shifted. Fifth thrust. The obstruction flew from his throat with enough force to land 2 rows away. She would later learn it was a piece of filet mignon that the first-class kitchen had apparently prepared for him specially, despite telling Destiny there was none left. She would have opinions about this. Christopher Kong gasped. It was the most beautiful sound Samantha had ever heard, raw and ragged and alive. He sucked in air like a drowning man breaking the surface, his entire body shuddering with the force of each breath. And then, somehow, they were both on the floor. She wasn't sure how it happened. One moment she was supporting his weight, and the next her knees were giving out, and they were collapsing together into the aisle in a graceless tangle of limbs and expensive suit fabric. She ended up half on top of him, her hands braced against his chest, her face inches from his. His eyes were open. They were staring directly into hers. And in that moment, that strange, suspended moment between crisis and calm, something passed between them. Something that Samantha couldn't name and didn't want to examine. "You," he breathed. His voice was wrecked, scraped raw. "You are going to need you to take deeper breaths," she said, because she was a professional and this was a medical situation, and she was absolutely not thinking about how warm he was beneath her palms. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. Can you do that?" He didn't answer. He just kept staring at her like she was the first sunrise he'd ever seen. "Sir? Christopher? Mr. Kong." She snapped her fingers in front of his face. "Stay with me. I need you to breathe." "You saved my life," he said. "I did my job. Now breathe." "You saved my life." "Yes, we've established this." "Breathing. Now, please." Around them, chaos had erupted. Passengers were standing, phones were out, because of course they were, and nothing happened if it wasn't documented, and the captain's voice was crackling over the intercom asking if there was a medical emergency. Samantha ignored all of it. She focused on the man beneath her, on the color slowly returning to his face, on the steadying rhythm of his chest, on the way his hand had somehow found hers and was gripping it like he'd never let go. "There we go," she said, her voice gentler now. "That's it. You're okay. You're going to be fine." "You saved my life," he said for the 3rd time. "I swear to God, if you say that again, I'm going to shove another stake down your throat." He laughed. It was weak, barely more than a wheeze, but it was a laugh, and it transformed his entire face. The cold CEO was gone. In his place was someone younger, someone real, someone who looked at her like she'd hung the moon and stars and possibly also the sun. "What's your name?" he asked. "Samantha Williams." "Now, can you stand? We should get you back in your seat. The captain's going to want to check on you, and I imagine there's going to be paperwork." "Samantha," he repeated, like he was tasting the syllables. "Samantha. That's my name, yes. You're very good at repeating things. It's a skill." She helped him to his feet, which was more difficult than it should have been because he refused to let go of her hand. They made their way back to his seat, a journey of approximately 4 feet that somehow felt like running a marathon, and she got him settled, adjusting his seat back to a recline, fetching a glass of water. The irony was not lost on her, and flagging down the onboard doctor who'd finally made his way from business class. Through all of it, Christopher Kong watched her. He watched her talk to the doctor. He watched her reassure other passengers. He watched her handle the paperwork that the captain had, indeed, required. He watched her fetch a replacement meal, salmon, because the universe had a sense of humor, and check his vitals twice more because she was nothing if not thorough. He watched her like she was the only person on the plane. He watched her like she was the only person in the world. And when she finally had a moment to slip away to the galley, to lean against the counter and close her eyes and process what the hell had just happened, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. He was standing there in the doorway, looking far too alive for a man who'd almost died 45 minutes ago. His tie was loosened. His hair was slightly disheveled. And his eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to back up. Made her want to run. Made her want to. "You shouldn't be out of your seat," she said. "Doctor's orders. I needed to see you. You've been seeing me. I've been right there. In the cabin. Where you can see me. I needed to talk to you. So talk." He stepped closer. She held her ground because she was Samantha Williams and she didn't back down from anyone, not even billionaire CEOs with hero complexes and unreasonably attractive faces. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "You could try thank you. It's traditional. Thank you. See? Not so hard. Now go sit down before you pass out and I have to save your life again. My knees can't take another round of collapsing onto airplane carpet." He didn't move. "Have dinner with me," he said. Samantha blinked. "Excuse me? When we land? In Houston. Have dinner with me." What? Dinner. It's a meal. Usually involves food. Sometimes conversation. I'd like to have it with you." She stared at him. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm always serious. You almost died. 30 minutes ago. And your first thought is asking out the flight attendant." "My first thought," he said quietly, "was that I couldn't die without knowing your name. My second thought was that I couldn't live without seeing you again." The galley was suddenly very small. Very small. Very quiet. Very full of Christopher King and his ridiculous cheekbones and his ridiculous words and his ridiculous existence. Samantha searched for words. "That's a lot. I know. We just met. I know. You don't know anything about me. I know you're brave," he said. "I know you're quick. I know you have a sharp tongue and you're not afraid to use it. I know you made a colleague cry, then made her laugh. I know you saved my life without hesitation. I know," he paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. "I know that when I couldn't breathe, when I thought I was dying, the only thing I could see was your face. And I know I'd very much like to keep seeing it." Samantha's heart was doing something complicated in her chest. Something that felt like panic but wasn't quite. Something that felt like falling but couldn't be. "This isn't a romance movie," she said finally. "I'm not going to swoon into your arms because you said some pretty words. I don't expect you to. I'm not interested in being anyone's conquest. Or charity case. Or whatever this is. I don't want a conquest. I don't give to charity. And this." He gestured between them. "I don't know what this is either. But I'd like to find out." She should say no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming at her to say no. He was too intense. Too powerful. Too much. This was the kind of man who got what he wanted, always, and she had no interest in being a what that anyone got. But there was something in his eyes. Something behind the intensity, beneath the confidence. Something that looked almost like hope. "One dinner," she heard herself say. "One. And if you spend the whole time talking about yourself or your company or your cars or whatever it is rich people talk about, I'm leaving. And you're paying." His smile, God, his smile, was like watching the sun rise. I would expect nothing less. She almost didn't show up. She got as far as the restaurant, a gorgeous little Italian place in Montrose that she'd walked past 100 times, but never entered because the prices were the kind that didn't actually appear on the menu, and stood outside for a full 7 minutes debating whether to turn around and go home. This was insane. This was absolutely, certifiably insane. She'd saved a man from choking on a plane, and now she was about to have dinner with him like they were in some kind of fever dream written by a romance novelist with no concept of reality. Just go home, she told herself. Text him some excuse. Food poisoning. Sudden onset amnesia. Alien abduction. Anything. But then she remembered his face. Not the cold CEO face. Not the, I'm better than you and we both know it face. The other one. The one from the galley, when he looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. She walked through the door. The restaurant was everything she'd expected: soft lighting, white tablecloths, the quiet murmur of expensive conversation. A hostess in an expensive black dress greeted her with a smile that was just this side of too perfect. "Welcome. Do you have a reservation?" "I'm meeting someone." "Kong." Something shifted in the hostess's expression. Recognition. Interest. The particular kind of attention that came from realizing you were serving someone important. "Of course. Right this way." She was led through the restaurant to a private table in the back corner, secluded enough for discretion, positioned enough for a view. And there, already seated with a glass of water in front of him, was Christopher Kong. He was wearing a different suit now. Navy blue, this time, with a white shirt open at the collar. No tie. He looked softer, more human. Less like a magazine cover and more like a man who'd spent 30 minutes deciding what to wear. When he saw her, he stood immediately. His eyes traveled over her, not in a gross way, not in a checking her out way, but in a way that suggested he was confirming she was real. She'd chosen a fitted burnt orange dress that she'd owned for 3 years, but rarely had occasion to wear, paired with gold jewelry and her hair down for once, falling past her shoulders in long, dark waves. "You came," he said. "Don't sound so surprised. You're not the only one who keeps their word." He pulled out her chair for her. She let him, mostly because she wanted to see his face when she made a comment about it. "Wow," she said, settling into the seat. "Actual chivalry. I thought that went extinct in the 90s. Some of us remember the classics." Next you'll be opening doors and paying for things." "I was planning on it." "How very traditional of you. Is that a problem?" She considered. "Ask me again after I've eaten." The waiter appeared, a young guy with an apologetic smile and a barely concealed nervousness that suggested he knew exactly who was sitting at this table. He rattled off specials and wine recommendations, took their orders with excessive politeness, and disappeared with the kind of speed usually reserved for people fleeing crime scenes. Left alone, Samantha and Christopher regarded each other. "So," she said. "So," he agreed. "This is the part where you tell me about yourself. Your company. Your cars. Your yacht, probably. You seem like a yacht person." "I don't have a yacht." "Private jet?" "No comment." "That's a yes." "It's more efficient than commercial," he said, and there was something almost offensive in his tone. "Time is. If you say time is money, I'm leaving right now." "I wasn't going to." "You absolutely were." He smiled, that real smile again, the one that made him look human. "Fine. I was going to say time is valuable, which is essentially the same thing, I'll admit. At least you're honest." "I'm trying to be." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I'm not sure. Someone more impressed, maybe." Samantha snorted. It was not an elegant sound. "Sorry to disappoint." "You didn't disappoint. You surprised me. That doesn't happen often." "Let me guess. Everyone usually falls all over themselves to make you happy. Tell you how wonderful you are. Laugh at your jokes even when they're not funny." "My jokes are funny." "Are they, though?" "They could be." "I don't tell many." "Why not?" He was quiet for a moment. "People don't expect me to be funny. They expect me to be, what's the word you used? Traditional. Serious. Important. And what do you expect yourself to be?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. His expression flickered surprise, then something deeper, something that looked almost like pain, before settling back into careful neutrality. "I don't know," he admitted. "I've spent so long being what everyone expects that I'm not sure there's anything else left." It was such an honest answer that Samantha didn't know what to do with it. Here was this man, this impossibly wealthy, impossibly powerful, impossibly handsome man, sitting across from her in a designer suit in a fancy restaurant, telling her he didn't know who he was. "Well," she said finally, "that's depressing." He laughed. "You really don't pull punches." "What's the point? Life's too short for pretending. Especially yours. You almost died today, remember?" "How could I forget?" "You were sitting on top of me. I was saving you. There's a difference." "Is there?" "A significant one." The wine arrived, a bottle of something red and Italian that the waiter presented with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. Christopher went through the tasting ritual with practiced ease, approved it, and waited while their glasses were filled. When they were alone again, he lifted his glass. To near-death experiences, he said. And the flight attendants who prevent them. They clinked glasses. The wine was, predictably, incredible, rich and smooth, and nothing like the $12 bottles she usually bought from the grocery store. So, Christopher said, setting down his glass. You know what I do. What about you? Beyond saving lives at 30,000 feet. What about me? Do you like the job? Have you always wanted to be a flight attendant? Where did you grow up? What are your hopes, dreams, fears, and favorite pizza toppings? That's a lot of questions. I'm trying to get to know you. Samantha considered deflecting, keeping things light, giving him the surface-level answers she gave everyone. Yes, she liked the job. No, she hadn't always wanted to do it. She grew up places. Her dreams were normal. Her fears were irrelevant. Pepperoni. But something about the way he was looking at her made her want to try something different. I love my job, she said slowly. I love seeing the world. I love the routine of it, knowing exactly what I'm supposed to do, exactly where I'm supposed to be. There's a rhythm to it that makes sense. She paused. I've been doing it for 8 years. Started right out of college. English major, which is exactly as useful as everyone says it is. Do you ever want to do something else? Sometimes. I think about writing. I used to want to be a journalist. Investigative stuff. Exposing corruption, holding power accountable, all that idealistic nonsense. She smiled. But the media landscape changed, and I realized I liked eating more than I liked principles. That's not selling out. That's being practical. That's what I tell myself. She took another sip of wine. What about you? Did you always want to be this? He was quiet for a long moment. No, he said finally. I wanted to be an architect. Really? I loved buildings. Loved the idea of creating something that would outlast me. Something beautiful, something functional, something that would stand long after I was gone. He traced a finger around the rim of his glass. But my father had other plans. Let me guess, family business. Something like that. He built Kong Industries from nothing. First-generation immigrant from Korea, came here with $200 and a suitcase. The classic story. His voice was carefully neutral. He expected me to carry on his legacy. And I did. But sometimes I look at the buildings I could have designed and wonder who I might have been. The admission hung between them, heavy with implications. That's a sad thing to say, Samantha said. Is it? You're what, 35? 36. 38. Okay, 38. You've got plenty of time to be something else. To do something else. You're rich enough that you could literally buy an architecture firm and design buildings for fun. It's not that simple, isn't it? You're sitting across from a woman who saved your life today. You almost died. What's simpler than deciding to actually live? He stared at her. She stared back. Has anyone ever told you that you're remarkably direct? He asked. Frequently. Usually as a criticism. It wasn't a criticism. Their food arrived sea-base for her, lamb for him, and conversation shifted to lighter things. He asked about her most memorable flights, the one where a woman had tried to bring a live peacock on board for emotional support, and she asked about his worst business decisions, a 2016 investment in a company that made smart socks, which she found hilarious. By the time dessert arrived, a chocolate lava cake they'd agreed to split, something had shifted between them. The wariness was still there. The awareness that this was strange, that this was fast, that this made no logical sense. But alongside it was something else. Connection. Actual, genuine connection. Can I tell you something? Christopher asked, watching her demolish her half of the cake with enthusiasm. Can I stop you? Probably not. Then go ahead. I've been on a lot of dates, he said. More than I can count. Business dinners that turned into something else. Setups from friends. The occasional disaster from an app one downloaded when I was feeling pathetic. And I've never, he stopped, searching for words. I've never felt like this. Like what? Like I could tell you anything. Like you'd actually hear it. Like you see, he shook his head. This is going to sound ridiculous. Everything sounds ridiculous if you preface it that way. Just say it. Like you see me. Not the CEO. Not the Kong name. Not the money or the power or any of it. Just me. Samantha set down her fork. Christopher, she said carefully, we've known each other for approximately 12 hours. 10 of which were spent in a metal tube hurtling through the sky. You cannot possibly know how I see you. Can't I? No. That's not how it works. Then how does it work? Time, she said. Effort. Slowly getting to know each other through repeated exposure and shared experiences. Not, she gestured around them. Not one near-death experience and a very good dinner. So have dinner with me again. What? You said time. Effort. Repeated exposure. Have dinner with me again. And again after that. As many times as it takes. You're insane. Possibly. I don't even live here. I have a layover apartment in Houston, but my main base is Atlanta. I travel constantly. I'm gone more than I'm home. I have a private jet. Of course you do. No comment, I believe I said. Despite herself, Samantha laughed. You're really not going to give up, are you? I've built an empire worth billions of dollars. Giving up isn't in my vocabulary. That's a terrible thing to brag about on a date. Is it working? She looked at him, really looked at him. At his earnest expression. At the hope in his eyes. At the way he was leaning forward like her answer was the most important thing in the world. One more dinner, she said finally. Tomorrow. If you're still in Houston. I can be. Don't you have a company to run? It can wait. Must be nice to be rich. It has its perks. She finished the last bite of cake and reached for her purse. I should go. Early flight tomorrow. Let me drive you home. No. No. You don't get to know where I live yet. That's at least a third date thing. He smiled, clearly delighted by the implication. So there's going to be a third date? I said maybe. Don't get cocky. She stood, and he stood with her, and for a moment they faced each other in the warm golden light of the restaurant. Thank you, he said quietly. For tonight. For earlier. For everything. You're welcome. Try not to choke on anything else between now and tomorrow. I'll do my best. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Samantha. She looked back. When I was dying, he said, when I couldn't breathe and I thought it was over, do you know what I regretted? What? Everything. I regretted everything. Every dinner I didn't have. Every chance I didn't take. Every time I chose what was expected over what I wanted. His eyes held hers. I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to have any more regrets. She didn't know what to say. So she didn't say anything. She just nodded once, turned, and walked out of the restaurant. But she could feel his gaze following her long after she'd disappeared into the night. What followed was, by any objective standard, complete madness. Over the next 3 weeks, Christopher Kang proceeded to romance Samantha Williams with a kind of single-minded determination usually reserved for hostile corporate takeovers. Dinner the next night became dinner the night after that, which became lunch between her flights, which became flowers delivered to her Atlanta apartment, which became a standing reservation at her favorite coffee shop in case she needed somewhere to think, which became... Is that a car? Samantha stared at the silver Lexus sitting in her building's parking lot, complete with a giant red bow on the hood. Did you buy me a car? Christopher, who had apparently flown to Atlanta specifically to witness her reaction, had the grace to look slightly sheepish. Your Uber reviews mentioned you were often late because your current vehicle was unreliable. You read my Uber reviews? I read everything about you. That's creepy. That's thorough. Christopher. She pinched the bridge of her nose. I cannot accept a car. Why not? Because it's a car. People don't just give other people cars. Not after 3 weeks. Not after 3 months. This is insane. I wanted you to be safe. I don't need you to keep me safe. I'm a grown woman who has been keeping herself safe for 26 years. I know that. Do you? Because the flowers were one thing, sweet, if excessive. The coffee shop reservation was oddly thoughtful. But this. She gestured at the Lexus. This is too much. He was quiet for a moment. I don't know how to do this, he admitted finally. Do what? Care about someone. The normal way. The right way. He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, he looked genuinely uncertain. I've spent my entire life solving problems with resources. Someone needs something, I provide it. That's how I show, he stopped. That's what I know how to do. Samantha softened. Just slightly. Christopher, she said, gentler now. You can't buy my affection. That's not how this works. I'm not trying to buy anything. Aren't you? No. He met her eyes. I'm trying to show you that you matter. That when I think about your problems, I want to solve them. That when I imagine your life, I want to be part of making it better. He paused. I understand that's overwhelming. I understand I'm a lot. But I don't know how to be less. You could start by asking, she said. Instead of assuming. Ask me what I need. Ask me what I want. Don't just appear with a Lexus like you're Oprah having a really good day. Despite himself, he laughed. Oprah, you get a car. You get a car. Everyone gets a car. She threw her hands up. That's you. That's what you're doing right now. I only bought one car. That you know of. For all I know, you've got a fleet of them waiting for every woman you meet. I don't meet women, he said quietly. I haven't met anyone in years. Not like this. Not like you. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. Return the car, she said finally. Samantha. Return the car, Christopher. And next time you want to do something nice for me, ask first. Take me to dinner. Watch a movie with me. Do normal people things. Can you do that? He nodded slowly. I can try. That's all I'm asking. She turned back toward her building, then paused. But keep the coffee shop reservation, she added. That one was actually useful. She could hear him laughing as she walked inside. The car incident should have been a warning sign. It wasn't. Or rather, it was, but Samantha chose to ignore it because somewhere along the way, between the flowers and the dinners and the phone calls that lasted until 3 a.m., she'd started to fall for Christopher Kong. It was infuriating. She, Samantha Williams, who prided herself on her independence and her practicality and her complete lack of interest in fairy tale romance, was falling for a man who was basically a walking romance novel protagonist. He was too much. Too intense. Too focused. Too everything. And she couldn't get enough of him. You're glowing, Destiny observed during a flight to Chicago, 3 weeks into whatever this was. Like, actually glowing. It's suspicious. I'm moisturized. That's not moisturizer. That's man. Destiny narrowed her eyes. You're seeing someone. I'm not. Is it the guy from the plane? The choking guy? Oh my God, it is, isn't it? I can see it on your face. Keep your voice down. It is. You're dating the billionaire. Samantha Williams, you sneaky, lucky. Destiny broke off, hand over her heart. Please tell me everything. I need to live vicariously through you. My love life is a barren wasteland of hinged disappointments and men who think Netflix and chill is the height of romance. There's nothing to tell. Lies. Beautiful, beautiful lies. Samantha sighed, accepting that resistance was futile. Fine. Yes. We've been seeing each other. Seeing each other. That's so casual. That's so breezy. That's so absolutely not what's happening based on the way your entire face lights up when you talk about him. Destiny. Sorry. I'm calm. I'm completely calm. Destiny fanned herself. So what's he like? In person? When he's not choking? Samantha considered the question. What was Christopher like? He was brilliant. Terrifyingly brilliant, the kind of smart that could dissect a business problem in seconds and saw patterns where others saw chaos. He was driven, almost pathologically so, incapable of doing anything halfway. He was intense in a way that should have been exhausting, but somehow wasn't. But he was also. He's funny, she said finally. When he lets himself be. He makes these dry little comments that catch you off guard. And he's gentle. In weird ways. He remembers everything I tell him, every random story, every complaint, every preference. Last week, I mentioned I missed these specific cookies from a bakery in Atlanta that closed 5 years ago. The next day, he had his assistant track down the owner and get the recipe. He what? I know. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. That's movie-level romance. That's Destiny stopped. Wait. His assistant. What about her? What's she like? Is she pretty? Does she want to steal him? Samantha laughed. His assistant is a 62-year-old man named David who has been married to his husband for 30 years and considers Christopher a workaholic disaster who needs supervision. Oh, well, that's less threatening. Much less. Destiny sighed dreamily. So when are you seeing him next? Tonight, actually. He's meeting me when we land. He's meeting you? At the airport. Destiny, I need you to breathe. I can't breathe. This is too much. You're living my dream and you don't even seem excited about it. But Samantha was excited. That was the terrifying part. She was excited in a way she hadn't been about anything in years, maybe ever. She woke up thinking about him. She went to sleep replaying their conversations. She checked her phone constantly, heart leaping every time his name appeared. It was ridiculous. It was wonderful. It was probably going to destroy her. 6 weeks into whatever they were doing, the bubble burst. It started with a photograph. Samantha was scrolling through her phone during a layover in Denver when she saw it, posted on some gossip site she never read, but that the algorithm had decided she needed to see. A picture of Christopher at a charity gala, looking devastating in a tuxedo, with a woman draped over his arm. The woman was beautiful. Of course she was. She was Korean, with sharp features and sharper clothes, looking at Christopher with a kind of proprietary familiarity that made Samantha's stomach turn. Kong Industries CEO spotted with ex-fiancé, the headline screamed. Reconciliation rumors swirl. Ex-fiancé. Ex-fiancé. He'd never mentioned an ex-fiancé. He'd never mentioned any ex at all. Samantha stared at the photo for a long time. Then she called him. He answered on the second ring. Samantha. I was just thinking about. Who's the woman? Silence. What woman? Don't. Her voice was harder than she'd intended. Don't do that. Don't play dumb. I just saw the photos from last night's gala. The woman in the blue dress who looked like she wanted to climb you like a tree. Who is she? Another silence. Longer this time. Her name is Michelle Park, he said finally. She was someone I used to be involved with. Involved with how? We were engaged. 5 years ago. The words hit like a punch. Engaged, Samantha repeated. Yes. And you didn't think to mention this? In 6 weeks of seeing each other, it never came up that you were engaged to someone. It ended badly, he said. I don't like to talk about it. I don't like to talk about the time I got food poisoning in Guatemala and spent 3 days in a hotel bathroom, but I still told you about it. Because that's what people do when they're trying to build something. They share things. Even the uncomfortable things. You're right. I know I'm right. What I don't know is why she was hanging off you at a gala last night while I was in Portland, missing you like an idiot. Nothing happened. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Samantha took a breath. Then another. The point, she said carefully, is that I'm realizing I don't know you. Not really. I know the version of you that you show me, the charming, attentive, romantic version. But you've got this whole other life. This whole world of ex-fiancés and charity galas, and God knows what else. And I'm standing outside of it, looking in through a window, and I'm starting to wonder if you're ever going to let me through the door. He was quiet for so long she thought he might have hung up. Can I see you? He asked finally. Tonight. In person. I want to explain. I'm in Denver. I know. I can be there in 4 hours. Christopher. Please. There it was again. That vulnerability beneath the confidence. That crack in the CEO armor that she'd glimpsed on the plane, in the restaurant, in a dozen small moments since. Fine, she said. But I swear to God, if your explanation involves the words, it's complicated, I'm walking out and you'll never see me again. It's not complicated, he said. It's just painful. She didn't know what to say to that. So she just gave him her hotel name and waited. He arrived at her hotel room at 8 p.m., looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. His tie was gone, his shirt sleeves were rolled up, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept. Can I come in? He asked. She stepped aside. He walked past her into the generic hotel room, beige carpet, beige walls, a view of the parking lot that cost $200 a night because this was America and water, she offered. No. Thank you. He sat on the edge of the bed, looking suddenly exhausted. I should have told you about Michelle. Yes, you should have. I didn't because he stopped. Started again. She's not someone I like to think about. Our engagement ended badly. Very badly. Let's just say she had certain expectations about who I would be, and when I didn't meet them, she made her displeasure known. Publicly. Samantha sat in the desk chair, putting distance between them. What kind of expectations? She wanted the CEO. The power. The name. He smiled bitterly. She didn't want me. And when she realized the person underneath the title was flawed and uncertain, and not at all what she'd imagined, she left. But not before making sure everyone knew I was difficult, distant, incapable of being what a woman needed. And you believed her? I didn't have a choice. The business press picked it up. The rumors spread. For 2 years, I was the emotionally unavailable asshole who'd driven away the perfect woman. It's part of why I haven't dated seriously since. Part of why, when I met you, I was so intense, she suggested. I was going to say grateful. But yes, intense. He met her eyes. I didn't want to tell you about her because I was afraid. Afraid you'd see me the way she did. The way everyone did. And the gala last night? She showed up uninvited. Positioned herself for the photographers. Made sure we'd be seen together. His jaw tightened. It was manipulation. It's what she does. I should have expected it. But you didn't. No. I was careless. I was thinking about you, about when I'd see you next, and I let my guard down. It won't happen again. Samantha studied him. He looked sincere. Exhausted and raw and more human than she'd ever seen him. But he'd also kept this from her. Had let her fall for him without knowing this fundamental piece of his history. Had allowed her to build a picture of who he was that was missing crucial information. I need you to understand something, she said slowly. I grew up learning not to trust pretty words. Learning that people will say anything to get what they want. Learning that charm is a weapon and sincerity is usually a lie. I'm not lying. I know you're not. That's not the point. She leaned forward. The point is that trust for me is earned. Slowly. Carefully. Through actions, not words. And what you did, hiding something this big, makes it harder for me to trust that there isn't something else you're hiding. Something worse. There isn't. How do I know that? You don't. You can't. He stood, moved toward her, then stopped, respecting her space, she realized. Letting her set the boundaries. All I can do is show you. Day by day. Week by week. For as long as it takes. I will tell you everything, Samantha. Every secret, every failure, every shameful thought I've ever had. If you'll let me. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But wanting wasn't enough. I need time, she said finally. To think. To process. I'm not saying this is over, but I need space. Something flickered in his expression. Pain. Understanding. Resignation. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. If you need space, I'll give it to you. But know this, he reached out, almost touching her cheek, then pulled back. I'm not giving up. I'll wait as long as you need. I'll answer any question you ask. I'll prove myself every single day if that's what it takes. Because you're worth it. Because this, he gestured between them, is worth it. He left without another word. Samantha sat alone in her beige hotel room, staring at the door for a very long time. 2 weeks of silence. 2 weeks of Samantha throwing herself into work, picking up extra flights, avoiding her phone like it was personally offensive. 2 weeks of Christopher not calling, not texting, not appearing with cars or flowers or grand gestures, respecting the space she'd asked for, even though every day that passed felt like a year. Destiny was worried. You look terrible, she said during a flight to Miami. Like, actually terrible. Have you been sleeping? Sleep is for people with uncomplicated lives. Sam. I'm fine. You're not fine. You haven't been fine since Denver. What happened? Nothing. Lies. Samantha sighed. He had an ex. An ex-fiancé. He didn't tell me about her, and she showed up at a gala making it look like they were getting back together, and I found out through photographs like some kind of celebrity gossip victim. Oh, honey. And then he came to Denver and explained and apologized and said all the right things, and I told him I needed space, and he's actually giving me space, which is infuriating because part of me wanted him to fight harder. That's a lot. I know. So, what are you going to do? Samantha looked out the tiny airplane window at the clouds below. I don't know, she admitted. I miss him. I miss him so much it's embarrassing. But I'm also scared. What if he is too much? What if I'm not enough? What if this whole thing is a fantasy that falls apart the second reality sets in? Or, Destiny said gently, what if it's real? What if he's the guy you've been waiting for and you're just scared to let yourself have it? When did you get so wise? I watch a lot of rom-coms. Also, my therapist is really good. Samantha laughed despite herself. Call him, Destiny said. Or don't call him. But make a decision. Sitting in limbo is just going to make you miserable. She was right. Samantha knew she was right. So that night, after they landed in Miami, she sat in her hotel room and pulled up Christopher's number. Her thumb hovered over the call button for a full 5 minutes. Then she pressed it. He answered immediately. Samantha. His voice was rough. Surprised. Hopeful. I miss you, she said. That's not me saying everything's fixed. That's not me saying I don't have more questions. But I miss you, and I didn't want another day to go by without telling you. I miss you too. He sounded like a man who'd been drowning and had finally broken the surface. I've been going out of my mind. David threatened to quit if I checked my phone one more time. Poor David. He's threatening to retire. Says I'm too dramatic for a man his age. Samantha laughed. It felt good. It felt like coming home. Where are you? Christopher asked. Miami. I can be there in 3 hours. Christopher. I'm not pushing. I'm just making myself available. In case you wanted company. For dinner. Or talking. Or just sitting in the same room and not talking. I'm flexible. Flexible? You. I'm trying new things. She smiled at the phone. Okay. Dinner. Tonight. But I picked the place. Somewhere normal. Somewhere that doesn't have a dress code or a wine list longer than my arm. I can do normal. Can you, though? I'll try my best. That's all I'm asking. He showed up at her hotel 3 hours later, exactly as promised, wearing jeans and a simple black sweater. You own jeans? She asked, genuinely surprised. I bought them today. For this. For you. You bought jeans specifically for one dinner? I wanted to look normal. That's both sweet and completely insane. Story of my life. She took him to a Cuban restaurant she'd discovered years ago, a tiny place with plastic chairs and walls covered in vintage posters and the best ropa vieja she'd ever tasted. He looked wildly out of place, and she loved it. They talked. Really talked. About Michelle, she was apparently relentless, but Christopher had hired a PR team specifically to manage her attempts to stay relevant through connection to him. About his work, more stressful than he let on, more isolating than he admitted. About her fears, commitment, vulnerability, needing someone only to have them leave. About his being unlovable, being too much, driving away everyone who got close. By the end of the night, they demolished 2 plates of food, 3 baskets of bread, and the last of Samantha's defenses. I want to try, she said as they walked back to her hotel. Really try. Not dating. Not seeing each other. Something real. Something that has a chance of lasting. You mean? I mean I want to be with you, Christopher. Properly. Exclusively. Whatever that looks like. She stopped walking, turning to face him. But you have to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more hiding parts of yourself because you're afraid I'll run. I'm here. I'm not running. But I need all of you, the good parts, the bad parts, the parts you think are too much. Can you do that? He stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, could see the emotion swimming in his dark eyes. I can do that, he said. I want to do that. I want to give you everything I have, Samantha. I've wanted that since the moment you saved my life. Then let's start, she said. Right now. Right here. No more tests. No more waiting. Let's just be. He kissed her. It was their first kiss, 6 weeks of tension and longing and nearly dying all pouring into one moment. It was devastating. It was perfect. And when they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Samantha realized something she'd been fighting since the moment she'd met him. She was in love. Completely, terrifyingly, irrevocably in love. And for once in her life, she wasn't going to run from it. 3 months later, Samantha Williams was sitting in a hotel room in Houston, staring at a small velvet box. Inside the box was a ring. A simple ring, white gold band, single diamond, elegant rather than ostentatious. Nothing like what she'd expected from a man who'd once tried to buy her a car. Christopher was on one knee in front of her, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. I know it's fast, he said. I know it's probably insane. I know we've only been together for a few months, and I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea. You're really selling it. But I also know," he continued, ignoring her sarcasm, "that I've never felt this way about anyone. I know that when I wake up, my first thought is you. I know that when something good happens, you're the first person I want to tell. I know that you make me laugh, and you challenge me, and you see the parts of me I've spent years hiding, and you haven't run away. Yet? Samantha. Sorry. Nervous humor. Continue." He took a breath. "I know that I'm not easy to love. I know I'm intense and overwhelming and clinically obsessive. But I also know that I would spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. That I would wake up every day grateful that you chose me. That I would." "Yes." He blinked. "What?" "Yes. I'll marry you." "Yes." She reached for the ring, then stopped. "Wait. Let me finish my speech." "You have a speech?" "I've been thinking about it for weeks. Since I realized you were going to do this. You knew. You're about as subtle as a marching band, Christopher. You've been nervous for days. David called me yesterday to prepare me for something significant. And you keep looking at my left hand like it personally offends you." He laughed, looking sheepish. "I thought I was being mysterious. You're many things. Mysterious isn't one of them." She took his hands. "Now, my speech. I'm listening." "I never believed in this," she said. "Love at first sight. Whirlwind romance. The whole fairy tale. I thought it was for movies and books and people who hadn't learned the world would disappoint them." She squeezed his fingers. "Then I met you. And you were awful. Arrogant and cold and dismissive, and I thought, here's another one. Another rich man who thinks the world owes him something. This is a very unflattering speech. I'm getting to the good part." "Hush." She smiled. "And then you choked. And I saved your life. And you looked at me like I was everything. And I thought, okay, maybe not awful. Maybe just scared. Maybe just someone who forgot how to be human. And then you kept showing up. You kept trying. You kept being awkward and intense and romantic in all the wrong ways, and somehow all the right ways too. And somewhere in there, I fell in love with you." His eyes were bright. Was Christopher Kang crying? "I love you," she continued. "I love your obsessive attention to detail. I love your terrible jokes that you never tell but should. I love that you bought jeans for one dinner and that you tracked down a bakery recipe for cookies and that you gave me space when I asked for it even though I could see it was killing you. I love you, Christopher Kong. All of you. And yes, 1,000 times yes, I will marry you." He kissed her. He kissed her like she was air and he was drowning. Then he pulled back, took the ring from the box with shaking hands, and slid it onto her finger. "It looks good on you," he said. "It better. It's going to be there forever." "Forever," he repeated, like he was tasting the word. Like he couldn't quite believe it was real. Forever. They got married 6 months later in Houston, in a ceremony that was everything Samantha had never known she wanted. It wasn't huge. It wasn't ostentatious. It wasn't the kind of society wedding that business magazines would feature. It was 50 people in a beautiful garden, string lights overhead, the smell of flowers in the air. She wore a flowing white dress with delicate gold embroidery that made her feel like something out of a dream. He wore a classic black suit and a smile that hadn't left his face in weeks. Destiny was her maid of honor, naturally. David stood by Christopher's side, looking equal parts proud and exasperated. Finally, he'd said when they'd announced the engagement, "Now maybe he'll stop being such a workaholic disaster." When Christopher saw her walking down the aisle, he cried. Openly. Unashamedly. In front of 50 people, the CEO of Kong Industries wept like a child seeing his first sunrise. "Told you I wasn't subtle," he whispered when she reached him. "I love you anyway." They said their vows. They exchanged rings. They kissed while 50 people cheered, and Destiny ugly cried into a silk handkerchief, and David muttered something about young love while dabbing his own eyes. At the reception, Christopher gave a toast. "I was dying," he said, "when I met my wife." Nervous laughter from the crowd. Literally dying. Choking on a piece of steak at 37,000 feet. And this woman, he looked at Samantha with an expression of such raw adoration that she felt her eyes prickle. This incredible, infuriating, brilliant woman saved my life. She didn't know who I was. She didn't care. She just acted. Because that's who she is. Someone who sees a problem and fixes it. Someone who sees a person in need and helps. He raised his glass. I've built companies. I've made billions. I've been featured in more magazines than I can count. But none of it, compares to being loved by Samantha. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure she never regrets saying yes. Everyone drink. Samantha cried. Then she stood for her own toast. I'd like to correct something my husband said, she announced. I absolutely knew who he was when I saved him. I'd watched him make my colleague cry 30 minutes earlier. I knew exactly who he was. I just didn't let it stop me. Laughter. The truth is, when I saw him choking, my first thought was, karma's real. My second thought was, oh God, I have to save this jerk, don't I? My third thought was, well, let's just say it involved more cursing than is appropriate for a wedding toast. More laughter. But here's the thing about karma. Sometimes it's not punishment. Sometimes it's opportunity. Sometimes the universe throws a jerk in your path and you save his life, and he turns out to not be a jerk at all. He turns out to be kind and funny and intense in the way that people are when they care too much about everything. He turns out to be worth saving. She looked at Christopher. I saved your life 6 months ago. But the truth is, you saved mine too. You reminded me that it's okay to want things. That it's okay to love hard, to fall fast, to take chances. You reminded me that fairy tales aren't just for movies and books. They're for regular people too. People like us. She raised her glass. To my husband. My love. My heart. Everyone drank. Christopher pulled her into his arms and kissed her like they weren't in front of 50 people. They were, but she didn't care. She was married. She was happy. She was home. 1 year later, Samantha was making breakfast when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A message from Destiny. Have you seen this? Attached was a link to a news article. Kong Industries CEO announces major shift, company to expand into sustainable architecture. Samantha smiled. She wandered into the living room of their Houston home, a beautiful place that Christopher had let her help design, compromise by compromise, until it felt like theirs, and found her husband on the couch, laptop open, brow furrowed in concentration. Anything interesting? She asked innocently. We're announcing the architecture division today. Press is going to be insane. He looked up, and his expression softened when he saw her. Morning. Morning. She dropped onto the couch beside him, tucking her legs beneath her. So, sustainable architecture. That's new. It's been in the works for months. And it has nothing to do with a certain conversation we had about dreams and regrets and who you wanted to be. Nothing whatsoever. Liar. He smiled, pulling her closer. Fine. Maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe I'm finally doing the thing I should have done 20 years ago. Maybe I'm building something beautiful and functional and lasting. He kissed her forehead. Maybe I have you to thank for that. I didn't do anything. You did everything. He looked at her with that same expression she'd seen on the plane, in the galley, at the restaurant, the one that said she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. You made me brave. You made me believe I could be more than what everyone expected. You made me want to live, Samantha. Actually live. Not just exist. She kissed him properly. Thoroughly. In a way that suggested breakfast might be delayed. I love you, she said against his lips. I love you too. He pulled back, grinning. Even though you still won't let me buy you a car. I let you buy me this house. You made me take your name off half the deed. I have principles. You're impossible. And yet you married me. Best decision I ever made. She laughed, settling into his arms, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her cheek. Outside, the Houston sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Inside, Samantha Williams King, flight attendant, wife, love of a billionaire's life, was exactly where she was meant to be. It had started with a choking man on a plane. It had ended with forever. And honestly, she couldn't think of a better story. And that, beautiful people, is the story of Christopher and Samantha. If you made it this far, drop a comment letting us know, did you see that twist with the ex coming? Were you rooting for them from the beginning? And most importantly, would you save someone who just made your colleague cry? If you loved this story, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next upload. Share this with your friends, your sisters, your book club, anyone who needs a good love story this week. Until next time, take care of yourselves, believe in love, and remember, sometimes the most annoying person you meet turns out to be your forever. See you in the next one.